What is a good weakness to mention on a job interview? Being vague. Can you elaborate? Yeah. Edit. Wow. Was having a not so cool day, but got here to see I got my first gold. Thanks, stranger. Now to figure out what it does. If you are changing industries, your biggest weakness is not knowing the industry yet. If you are younger, say inexperience. Anything to show your willingness to learn and develop. Depends on the position, but I will sometimes say that I have trouble delegating when I know I can perform a task well. I'd rather just do it myself and know that everything will be done correctly. Edit. Thank you for the various precious metals. I realize this advice can backfire. That's why I said sometimes. There is also a way to phrase this that makes you sound better. I was asked this during an interview with Uber, and I was completely caught off guard. I ended up fumbling and saying something along the lines of I cannot ride a unicycle, for which I immediately regretted. I once got a job, partly because of my honest answer to this. I need to know why I'm doing what I'm doing. I don't like being told to do something without an end game in mind, without knowing the reasoning behind it. When I work, I need something to aim at. Some employers don't like this because they like their employees to be cogs in a machine they control. I don't like those jobs and I don't want them. The place I was applying to was not that kind of workplace, and they liked my answer. Ended up being a great job where my boss valued my input and trusted me to take the reins on a variety of tasks. I interviewed a girl once, and she said honestly, cake. I can never say no to it. She was so genuine and the answer struck us all as honestly hilarious. We hate those corporate interview questions too. It was more about finding someone who could answer questions like a real person and had some sort of personality show through. It's amazing how many people just couldn't answer certain questions, as though they were so nervous to get it wrong they froze up. In another interview, my boss asked a candidate, tell me about a time you screwed up at work. She thought for a while and said, gosh, I'm sorry, there are certainly times, but there's nothing major that comes to mind at the moment. I'll think on it while we do other questions. That's what we wanted as interviewers, not a perfect answer, just people that seemed comfortable and normal. Lol. When I was graduating college, I got interview tips from my dad, who was heavily involved in the hiring process at his company for his department. His advice on this one, which I've used ever since and has gone great, was the whole say a weakness that's actually a positive has been done to death and is such common knowledge that it's no longer a clever trick and is now seen as avoiding the question. People want to see some self-awareness. Obviously don't bring something absolutely terrible up, but mention a real flaw and most importantly what you've done to address or work with it. For example, the one I tend to use is that I can be forgetful, so I now keep multiple sets of calendars, reminders, notes, etc. to cover as much as possible. Honesty. I don't think honesty is a weakness. I don't give a fuck what you think. For my current job, I said that I had a hard time sharing my ideas with new groups. Why do you want to work here? I'd say my greatest weakness is listening. I'm terrible at interviews. Weak against fire and sharp objects. My biggest weakness is that sometimes in interviews, I have absolutely no idea how to answer some of the questions. Terrible handwriting is my biggest weakness. How so? You'll never know what I wrote down. It looks like a blind man wrote it. And thank you everyone who wished me a happy cake day. I keep replying and whatnot, but I'm about to go to work. So here is one big thank you. Also thanks for making it feel like I'm not alone on the bad handwriting thing. I've always been embarrassed about it, but I appreciate you all with horrid handwriting. I don't feel so alone. Close bracket. Actual weakness. Taking on jobs by myself, not taking time to train other people to do them. In the end, I'm usually the guy and find myself feeling burnt out. Probably could be worded better at an interview, but this could sound like you're a go-getter. It might also encourage your employer to find opportunities for you to train other people to do things you particularly don't like doing. I printed out a card that says sometimes I over-prepare and handed it to them when they asked it. I got the job. frame it in terms of something you're looking to improve. Well, at my last performance evaluation I received some constructive criticism regarding X, so since then I've been doing Y and Z to focus on improving in that regard. Honestly though, if an interviewer asks you that ridiculous cliched question, either they have no idea what they are doing and or don't give a shit, or they aren't looking for an answer but just want to see how you respond to being pushed. I work in healthcare and always say not speaking Spanish, and odds are the interviewer is also not fluent in Spanish, so it comes across as not really a weakness. Win-win. I have a hard time saying no. What is your greatest weakness? Probably that I have no strengths. My weakness is I can get too focused on a task trying to perfect it and waste time trying to get a 96 to a 97 when 90 is acceptable. On the blueprints we get they say there is a plus minus tolerance of 3mm for my measurements. That is way too huge, and I insist on trying to get it down to at least 1mm. My big disc is always getting caught on things and knocking things. I always say that my biggest weaknesses are the ones I don't know about yet, because the ones I do know about I can and do work to improve on. And then I seg into a conversation about how I take criticism very well, and I'm always open to suggestions for ways in which I can improve my performance. Figure out a skill that's not required for the job you are applying for, but is required for the job 2 promotions above that job. Then say it's your big weakness, but that also you are looking to learn and develop that skill from people who are strong at it. Alternatively, if you're far enough along in your career that you have had several promotions and have reports/people to delegate to, you can say you were never as good as other people at skill someone below your job level must do, but that's why you've learned to delegate it. Recruiter here, just be completely honest. The hiring manager is looking for an honest answer because those who can't identify their areas of weakness aren't working on them. Edit, getting lots of feedback here. The weakness question is being asked in a workplace, and so your answer should pertain to the workplace, not your personal life. Saying well I just can't resist brownies, that's not an answer as it pertains to the workplace. The interviewer is both assessing your ability to reflect on personal development as well as your self-awareness within the workplace. They want to know if after they hire you, you have the social maturity to keep work at work and home at home. They're also trying to gauge whether or not you're going to be a future pain in their ass. So yes, give an honest answer, but still an answer as it relates to your profession. If you need an office reference, think how would Jim answer this question, not how would White answer this question. Here's a good example. Sometimes I get distracted at work, so I've recently started using an app to regulate my screen time. It's honest, it's related to the workplace, it's short and concise, it's a real issue, it shows that you're working on your issues. It also shows that you're a chill ass dude because you didn't start talking about how you care too much or some fake bullshit. See what I mean? In my most recent interview, got the job, I answered I don't like to stay late. I'll come in half an hour early at the drop of a hat, but if you tell me I'm off at 4 and then work conspires to try to keep me longer, I will not be staying. Work stops at 4, period. Depending on the job and culture, this can break your chances of getting the job, but pretty much anyone can sympathize with not wanting to stay later, and it doesn't come off as one of those smart ass I'm a perfectionist answers. It also tells them that you probably won't be racking up that expensive overtime. As someone who interviews hundreds of people each year, this question stumps almost every person asked. The worst responses are, I have trouble being on time, I'm argumentative, I don't get along with. I also don't think disguising strengths as weaknesses is a good idea either. The best response I think I have heard, besides not being able to ride a unicycle, is, I make mistakes, but I'm only human. I'm sure I will make some mistakes along the way learning the ins and outs of this position, but as soon as I know I made a mistake, I try to fix it immediately and make sure it doesn't happen again. Just my 2 cents. I hate this interview question. I interview candidates every few months. This is a totally useless question. The field I interview for usually has passionate people, so instead I ask of all the aspects of doing job which part of the process do you enjoy the most? Nobody is nervous about this question. Gives me some insight into what they want to be working on, where they think they are strongest, and what would make them happy and productive vs bored. Random off topic. But I once had an interviewer ask me, if you were an item on the salad bar, what would you be and why? Which I replied shredded cheese, because I'm full fat and straight off the block. They absolutely loved the answer and thought I was a quick thinker. But alas, I'm just frequently thinking about cheese. One of my actual weaknesses, when I get nervous/excited, I tend to speak really fast and breathlessly. This can actually have a negative influence on my job as I work in healthcare and have to respond/communicate during emergencies. For my next interview, I will bring this up and say I have discovered that taking a second to collect myself and take a deep breath seems to calm my nerves and allow me to do/say what is needed in a more collected manner.